Hey everyone, it's your boy Matt. It is the 2nd of June 2026 and this is a personal update. Today I'm making a video which is meant more for people who, I can't believe I'm saying this, might look up to me. Oh my god, did you have terrible judgment? But we're going to talk about alcohol, right? My history with alcohol, what its effect it's had on me, the upsides to it, the downsides to it. And it's a video which is me acting out my role as a healthcare professional to help you understand what's going on with booze so young people can make decisions on it. So, I began my cycle of alcoholism in around 2020, and it was a result to being closed off from the world during COVID. I'd been pretty close to it a few times, having to the point where it was an issue, but the social isolation of COVID is what kind of flipped things over for me. Not having things to do with people, being separated from the community, not being able to do sport. And that's the thing, if I can't do my sport, which was jiu-jitsu, which was such an important part of my life for years, if I can't do that, other things fall off. I'm slightly autistic. I find people exhausting to be around. So I need an activity which I am very familiar with, or at least in the past I found it quite useful to base what I'm doing around. So something like jiu-jitsu, which is very technical, is physical, it involves a lot of strategic thinking, and is very in your head, is something which I'm very good at. And it was how I was able to have some form of social relations with people. But following that, my life just sort of started going downhill from there because I wasn't working. And that's the other thing. You don't want to ever be in a situation where you don't have a job and you start drinking, okay? When those two things collide, you're potentially on a very quick downward spiral or downward slope, all right? If you don't have things to keep your attention and things to do, you're just going to drink, and there's a negative cycle which comes. Like, you're going to be hungover, you're going to be inebriated, your ability to do these other things goes away, and that's how you get sort of a slump happening. And it's quite insidious. It's something which fuels back onto itself, and being in that situation isn't pleasant. It's a lot of fun for a bit. Being like, I'd recommend, if you're living life for the lols, like I'm not down with the current lingo. The last time I was hip, we were using terms like YOLO and shit. But if you're just here to have a time, having a couple years as a drunk bum, it's a bit of fun. Being a dropkick, people who are more social than I am, and that's the thing. It's mainly just that I'm not social, so I don't enjoy it as much as other people do. It's really fun just ending up on people's couches and finding yourself in messy situations, because I've had many of those involving alcohol. There's a saying that no good story starts with anyone eating a salad. The same with booze. It's a bit like that, and I've got many hectic and fun stories. But the time between those crazy and fun stories, which are memorable and are ones which are worth telling, is a long amount of time of me doing fuck all, either being alone, drinking, or being hungover, and that cycle repeating itself. Okay? And that's the point I want to make, is that if you are ever unemployed, that is not the time to be using substances. Okay? I think there are dangerous situations that you need to identify in yourself, and when you hit those dangerous situations, you're like, no booze, no weed, none of that. The problem is that it's just the point where it ever becomes a habit, right? There's this idea in our culture, in the Australian culture, that you'll get home from work and you'll have a beer from the fridge. Some people can handle that. My personal view is just to not have it in the home at all. I feel like booze is something which it's something like it's like having a bomb waiting to detonate. And if you're a person who's in a culture which facilitates communal drinking, that may be a different thing. So if you're Irish, if you're Italian, these cultures they have these communal things around alcohol use, and they've got some quite healthy norms around it. But if your family culture and your culture isn't one which has social norms around drinking, limitations on socially enforced limitations on alcohol use and these things, you're going to have a bad time. And this is a cliche thing that people will find when they leave home, particularly when they're going to university or something similar, is they'll have booze and they now have access to this stuff, and it just fundamentally alters. It's an ingredient which hasn't been there. Okay, so I come from a very religious community, so we don't drink at all. So there were no social norms around appropriate alcohol use. In my family, it was just straight up taboo, and that was not useful for me as I transitioned into wider society, because alcohol is just a part of our culture. We have beers at work when we clock off on Friday. You'll have a beer when you're at a social function. Being able to navigate alcohol and being able to both provide it in a social setting and being able to handle it responsibly is just an adult skill. When you get to a point where I am, though, when it's become a behavioral thing which has been reinforcing on top of each other, you've got a problem. So that's alcohol. I would say other drugs, of the two primary low impact drugs which are available in society, I'd say that's alcohol and marijuana. I think marijuana is probably a better substance. I think people do not adequately acknowledge the side effects of drinking alcohol. I don't think people acknowledge the effects it has on anxiety, mental health, and a vast host of other things. I think something like marijuana is something which is funner and better, but I also think it should be considered the same as alcohol, as something which is a substance which is reserved for communal settings, and is not something to partake in too often if you're unemployed and you don't have good patterns of behavior going on. Because similarly, if you are bored, if you are being very badly abused, as I have been, what ends up happening is that these substances become a means of escaping boredom or escaping psychological suffering. And if you haven't noticed, I've had a large amount of that to escape. I think what it also does is that alcohol, if you are a person who is very high achieving, such as myself, what ends up happening is that it also becomes an excuse not to have to achieve or not to have to work exceedingly hard at something, right? You then have an excuse, you're hungover, you're drunk, or something like this, so you don't need to be at your A game. And that's how it came into my life, as sort of a means of me being able to stop working because I didn't have an off switch. And for me, alcohol was a means of me being able to have a break, because I would not let myself have a break otherwise. That break has turned into 2 years of unemployment. That unemployment has been not my choice. That has been, and it's been a case of abuse by the government, being gang stalked, and also just a host of horrific things which have happened to me. But I suppose the worst part of alcohol abuse for me is being labelled an undesirable person. So I have made more contributions to the field of psychology, and related social sciences than virtually any other psychologist in Australia. I am 31 years old. I'd already was topping the leaderboards when we're talking about cultural impact in my discipline when I was like 29 years old. I wasn't even 30 when I was having a substantial impact on psychological practice in Australia. I am now world renowned. I have adjusted multiple government policies and was instrumental in changing the training pipeline for psychologists in Australia. I helped start a freaking AI revolution using my understanding of quantitative social science work. I have done so many absolutely amazing things, but because I'm unemployed and because I drink alcohol, my achievements are marginalized and I get shunned, and there's this box which exists in society where we can put people who are miserable and we decide are worthless, and we say those people are alcoholics or the unemployed or these things. And the substantial achievement and the truly, how do I put it, the enormity of my contribution is somehow then marginalizable because I drink and because I'm unemployed, right? Where really the issue is that I've done incredible work and I've been stopped from being able to get remunerated from it. And that's my personal update regarding alcohol use. It's just, I would advise young people to just not touch alcohol in general. I would recommend that if you want to have fun with a substance, smoke weed with your friends, but be careful taking it home with you, and don't start taking this stuff by yourself, okay? Because that's going to cause all kinds of, it's like having a ticking time bomb having this stuff in your life. It just need a couple of bad days or a really truly terrible set of situations, and what is already an existing catastrophe can be made into something far worse. I don't regret my alcohol use. I think it's been quite useful as a part of a performance with me trying to showcase how fucked everything is. It's been sort of a prop in that process. But it's not something which I want other people emulating, and I wanted to communicate these things about alcohol, particularly for younger people who are watching my stuff. And it's not meant in any way to be a condescending thing. You do your life. If you're a really social guy and you're living life for the lols, fucking wake up in your mate's couch in Sydney and then Hobart the next week. If you're a person like me who's naturally quite introverted, this stuff is quite dangerous, and it's best if you don't touch it. Have a good day, everyone.